It's the Brad and John Show.
It is the Brad John Show. Today's date is the 28th of October. This is the B Block, the Bravo Block. Streaming's up, and John is up. And John, what do we do in the B Block?
It's time for Brad's Top 3.
Well, I hit it, but it didn't do anything. Let's try it one more time.
It's time for Brad's
Top 3.
There it is. We have to do it twice. That's what the union contract says, ladies.
It's time for Brad's Top.
And we started off with,
It's number 3.
it is number 3. The story that I've read on a couple news sites this morning is James Comer, Mr. Comer, and the autopen. Are we tired of the autopen, John? Here they're now saying again that we don't know, not we, but they're saying we don't know if these things that Biden signed with the autopen are legit. But more importantly, and I do see their point here, remember we talked about the fact that when Biden gave all the pardons and at the end of his, right before he got out of office, that he didn't individually pick people. He just gave his staff categories and said, pick from these categories. Remember we talked about that?
Yeah, I think so. But isn't that a wildly more efficient way to do things?
Well, see, the interesting part of this is the legal tacticians who are in the Republican Party saying, no, you can't do that. The president has to himself approve of each pardon. And if the president does not approve of each pardon, it's not decent. It's not a good pardon. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, how are they going to go back and prove this? Because, Biden's just going to say, oh, well, I don't know what they're talking about. I approved every one of those. And they're going to say, well, can you remember who they are? And he's going to say, well, I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday. So what difference does that make? You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah. Actually, what I think he's going to do, he's going to go to Cindy Cristofanelli just to check his memory. But also, I think it's fair to go to Biden with categories like, okay, here's, I don't know, your children you should pardon. Here's rappers you should pardon. And just do a blanket category.
Well, that's essentially what he did. And the title of the article is Comer Unleashes on Biden, Demands DOJ Probe of Autopen Use in Scathing New Report. And it talks about House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer, Republican Kentucky, is demanding the Department of Justice conduct a comprehensive investigation into former President Joe Biden's autopen use. Talks about, here, let me go, my phone's moving around here. The committee's GOP majority released a 100-page report on Tuesday morning detailing, that's this morning, detailing findings from its month-long probe into Biden's White House, specifically whether his inner circle covered up signs of mental decline in the ex-president, and then if alleged cover-up extended to executive actions signed via autopen without Biden's full answers. They don't have to conduct a investigation. All they have to ask is just ask Karine Jean-Pierre, because she says, oh, I met with Biden every day. He's sharp as a tack. He knows, he can tell me exactly how many stitches are in the bottom of each of one of his shoes.
Yeah, exactly. How many are on the edge of his Hoka transport?
Oh, right. Because you're not going to get a straight answer out of any of those people. Remember, we had the story, the one guy, when they got him in front of the congressional hearing, who was saying, well, Joe Biden, he's sharp as a tack. And it turns out the entire time this guy worked with Joe Biden, he only met with them face-to-face twice. You're going like, okay, get what I'm saying? You're not going to get anywhere with this.
But he heard from somebody else that Biden was in good shape.
Yes, and John's going to say, what's your thing you put up yesterday, the telephone deal or whatever it's now in our new
Boomer Facebook telephone.
Right, Boomer Facebook telephone. John, I'm so sick of this stupid thing. Let's all move on and essentially say, okay, we know that Biden really wasn't competent to do the job. Yes, there was stuff signed with the autopen. Yes, lots of stuff got done that should have been done by the president, but was not done by the president, was done by his staff. Let's just move on. What do you think, John?
I don't know. I think, it's one of those whataboutism. So why should Republicans move on? What about Democrats not moving on from Donald Trump, Brad?
Well, that's my number one.
I mean, you can't unpardon these people, and I see your point, and I think you are right about that.
That's my number one. We'll get to that. But number two, you ready for number two?
Yeah, let's do it.
It's time for Brad's number 2. It's time for Brad's number 2.
You took my Missouri redistricting thing away, so I'm going to move to Virginia. Are you familiar with what's going on in Virginia, John?
Yeah, it's for lovers.
No. This is such a bizarre story, okay? There's a lady who's a Republican who's the current lieutenant governor. Her name is Winsome Sears. All of a sudden, I've heard her called Winsome Earle-Sears. Apparently, she's hyphenated her last name now.
And she's a black gal, right?
Yeah, and the interesting thing is there's an interesting story about that as well, too, because there's a guy that lost his job over yelling at her at a campaign event, but that's a whole nother story. Okay, here's the bizarre part of this story, okay? All of a sudden, the election, they have this interesting thing where they have their gubernatorial election in off years. The normal elections would be like in even years, but they have a governor's election. What, next week? Week after next, I guess? Is it next week?
Yeah,
I
think
I guess it's next
maybe
week.
next week.
Next week. Same thing with New Jersey, okay? She's running up against this gal who is just sort of bizarro. And if you know the whole crazy thing with the attorney general who sent these nasty texts, it just got into the weeds. Okay, but here's the interesting part of this. All of a sudden, out of left field, the Virginia, I don't know if they call it it's weird because Virginia's technically a commonwealth. It's not a state. All of a sudden, out of left field, the Democrats have said, hey, you know what? We never officially closed last year's session. We never brought it to a close. So therefore, we're opening last year's session. Does this make any sense to you, John?
No, I hadn't heard the story. So what's the point of it?
They are redistricting. They're redistricting.
Wow, okay, okay, there we go.
But here's
now, how does this affect Winsome Sears?
Thank you for asking, because in Virginia, the lieutenant governor has to essentially be in charge of the proceedings of the state Congress. So essentially, she's being pulled off the campaign trail by the Democrats, and remember, she's a Republican. She's in a very tight race for the governorship, and because of the state constitution or whatever it is in the Commonwealth, she is in charge of the goings on in the state Senate and the state Congress. They pulled her off the campaign trail because the Democrats want to now debate redistricting. I'm going like, okay, talking about dirty tricks. You know,
I mean, that's pretty smart, right?
Well, it's smart, but it's to the point where it's like, I think at some point in time, let's be honest. You put 100 people in a room, you randomly select 100 people in a room. 90% of those people have no idea who their state rep is. They don't care. They don't know who.
Yeah, they're just living their life. They don't worry about government.
They're worried about what you can buy. If you can buy cannabis or hemp, that kind of stuff. That's what they're worried about.
Yeah.
And there's of those 100 people, 5 of them know a little bit, and 5 of them are political nerds like John. Okay, and to the point where it's like, what is going on with this stupid redistricting? It's to the point where it's like, it's so stupid and it's a waste of time. And this is a perfect example of how the Dems are essentially. And the crazy part of this is, you ask most authorities on this, and they will tell you that the Democrats are the ones, for the most part, in most states, that are the ones that are real good at gerrymandering. Would you agree or disagree with that, John?
Yeah, I would think so, over a period of time, for sure. And in the state of Missouri, as I referenced earlier, with the great Joyce Abusi, I think Democrats were masters of it.
Right, exactly. And to the point, the whole thing comes down to, like I heard this guy give this talk, and he says you divide each state into squares, and all you do is just move the squares larger or smaller. Real simple. Nothing to it. You essentially say, like Missouri would be 8 squares. You start at the top, you put a couple across the top. Essentially, you like in Missouri, you do 4 rows of 2. So essentially, you have 2, up there, 2, down, 2, 2. And essentially all you do is you just move the squares a little bit. So if the St. Louis, if the square would be for the St. Louis area, we grow in population, you increase that square. You would decrease the square as it grew in population. Because
and what do I say about that every time, Brad?
You say it's stupid, and Brad, give up. You're never going to go anywhere, right?
It's a knuckle dragger. Yeah, and if we go back to A block, it violates the very basic premise of the Voting Rights Act. But other than that, it sounds good, and people can, people that stand around in the ice cream aisle at Schnucks can say, "Did you hear this new theory?" Like, it sounds good to people that aren't very bright.
And that's me. Okay, number 1.
And now, big finish, Brad's number 1.
John, I'm driving along yesterday morning, listening to another station, and I had an OMG moment. And I thought to myself, the Democrats just can't give up on this.
Oh, yeah? What is it? What's the topic?
They were talking about, I don't know if you've heard this before, the new thing that the Democrats are saying is, if you notice, Jen Psaki has started this. Remember where they were during the presidential election where they were calling J.D. Vance weird? And remember the guy calling him...
And, oh, wait a minute. Does this have to do with his wife?
Well... Okay, remember they were calling, and specifically it was Mr. Walls from Minnesota, who I think is weird, and he was calling J.D. Vance weird. And they're essentially saying that J.D. Vance is the Manchurian candidate. And if you know the crazy story, Jen Psaki says that Usha Vance, who is an Indian woman, needs to blink 4 times to essentially communicate the fact that she's being held without her will in a marriage. Do you hear this crazy, stupid story?
Yeah, I have heard this, Brad.
Okay. So here's how the story progresses. They're saying that what they're now trying to do is they're trying to essentially, the Democrats are trying to essentially float this narrative that J.D. Vance is the Manchurian candidate. If you know what that's all about, look it up and you'll understand. And that what's going to happen is that J.D. Vance is going to be promoted as the presidential candidate. But the vice presidential candidate will be, guess who, John?
His wife.
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what they're saying. They're saying that in the 2028 election, when it goes through the Republican convention, that J.D. Vance will be the presidential candidate and Donald Trump will be the vice presidential candidate. And when J.D. Vance is sworn into office, 2 days later, he's going to resign and Trump will be the president again because he can't serve 3 terms being elected, but there's nothing against the Constitution that says he can't serve another term if he essentially did not run for office but got put into office because of the fact that the president could not serve and essentially he resigned and the vice president becomes the president. Is this bizarre, weird crap or what?
I think it goes to the Democratic idea that Trump thinks he's a king. And if you're one of these people that goes outside with a no king sign, it plays into every one of your fears. And think of how many Democrats and boomer Facebook types, no disrespect, Brett, that are liberal would see it and share it on Facebook. I think Jen Psaki's right. Like, it's a beautiful conspiracy theory.
When I heard this, I thought to myself, I don't believe I'm hearing this. It's so bizarre and so weird. And I thought to myself, you know what? It's weird enough that there are going to be people who are going to believe this. Don't you think, John?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think that'll probably dominate a lot of conversation going forward.
Right.
I mean, it's easy to buy into.
And the interesting thing was then the topic came up, what if it's not J.D. Vance? And they said, well, the other one would be Marco Rubio, and he would do the same thing. I'm going like,
oh, yeah, little Marco, as Donald called him, which... Do you think he's looking to do Donald Trump a big favor?
No, it just doesn't make any sense to me. This whole thing is so bizarre and so weird. It's like, okay. And the crazy thing about it is I go back to, wasn't this past weekend, it was weekend before last, where I told you I was listening to NPR and one of the reporters were saying, and so far, you know, they were making comments about Donald Trump, and he hasn't done anything of note since he's been president. I'm thinking to myself, what is she talking about?
Yeah, and that's counter to every message at the No Kings protest.
Yes, that's exactly right, because they're saying the No Kings protest is all about he's taking all this power, he's doing things he shouldn't be doing, and I'll be honest with you. I have to tell you, I'm not a real proponent of them blowing up these narco boats. I'm going like, I don't know about that. I don't think you should have the military blowing these guys out of the water. But then you go back to Obama, because remember there was even Obama laughed about the fact that you know he was blowing up all these people with the drones. And remember the one press conference he was at when he made some comment. Somebody asked, "What about your daughters? Are they dating now?" Remember this crazy comment?
Yeah, and you mentioned it last week, Brad. What did he say?
He said, they better watch it because I can send a drone after them. You know, at the point, I'm like,
yeah. Okay. Hey, I think we can all agree that when there's narco-terrorists out there, we should just send the Coast Guard to just stop and frisk, maybe push them up against the wall and shake a nightstick at them and tell them stop running drugs.
Well, the interesting thing about this is supposedly the news is now there are no narco boats heading north anymore because of the fact I think the volunteers are the people who were willing to drive those narco boats are probably saying, I don't think I want to do that anymore.
Yeah, they might rather, it might be better to just go work at your local dispensary. If you want to hear a great commentary on the narco-terrorism issue, go to johncombest.com today and listen to Congressman Eric Burlison on the air. There's a show in Springfield, the Mornings with Nick Reed, and Eric was talking about how the Coast Guard used to just pull people over and give them a stern talking to, and that didn't seem to work very well, did it?
But this is not the Coast Guard doing this. The Coast Guard's not nuking these guys. This is the...
I know, I'm saying, but 4 years ago, Brad, when there were narco-terrorists, somebody would pull them over and say, now, guys, come on now, don't be doing this.
Yeah, well, they would take the drugs and things like that. But I don't know. Sometimes... I don't know. The whole thing to me is I just shake my head and I think to myself, I had a rough day yesterday. I'll be honest with you, John. I had a really rough day. A lot of weird things happened to me and strange stuff.
Was it because
like
of
that.
health? Or what are you comfortable sharing?
I think I'm mentally going nuts. I really am. I think I'm losing it. I truly...
And you're saying going, right? This is a new thing?
Yeah, a new thing. I'm thinking to myself, maybe I need to essentially just step away from giving a poop about stuff and caring about things and reading about stories and thinking to myself. As a matter of fact, maybe we'll talk about that in C Block. And by the way, in C Block, we didn't do that yesterday. I need to do a technical test. So the beginning of C Block, we're going to do a technical test.
Ooh, I love it, Brad.
I have to get something figured out. Okay, we're way over time again. It's my fault. It's always my fault. Everything's my fault.